If you lived through the 2008 financial crash like I did, you probably saw initially something very similar just happened this weekend. For those of you who don't know, a bank called the Silicon Valley Bank, which is America's, I think, 16th largest bank, when it comes to it, essentially on Friday almost collapsed over the weekend. And there were a lot of people very worried that this could have ripple effects, just as the 2008 financial crisis did. It rippled throughout multiple banks. And as a result, we ended up with, well, well, the 2008 financial crash. So a lot of people were very worried, and I think rightly so, to see the situation going on in America again, to see a big bank like this potentially falling. Now, luckily from what we can see at the moment, is that the US government did step in to basically guarantee people's deposits. So this seems to, at the moment, of very much stemmed the tide of what is happening there. So that is a good thing. Not only that, but in the UK and Australia as well, those governments, our own government and the Australian government, have stepped in to help there. We've seen, I think it's Santander in the UK, they've bought sort of the Silicon Valley Bank arm in the UK. They've bought that up. They now own that. So that has somewhat stabilized this potential situation there. But as a lot of people are warning now, is this a first ripple before another banking crash? Or is this something of an indicator of maybe something larger that could about to be affecting the tech sector? And rather than a banking crash, we see a tech sector crash. So before we go more into talking about this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. Like I say, do remember to ring the bell. And of course, down below, you can find my Patreon page where you can help support the channel that way. There's the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me a coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So what happened here? Well, it essentially seems to be that there seems to have been a run on the bank because banks do not keep most of their assets in cash. So if there is a run on the bank, as there seemed to have been, and it seems to have been very much by people, or at least the tech companies, drawing a lot of money out from the bank at once, which then caused the bank to go, we've got next to no cash left. So they then started calling in loans from some of these companies that had already, withdrawn money from those loans from the bank. You can see the sort of vicious cycle that sort of seemed to have happened and sort of spiral out of control. And there are other people worrying, could this potentially be affecting, or maybe soon to affect, other banks who are also have a lot of loans with tech sector companies? Because the tech sector itself, when you see these companies start up, most of them take out loans up to their eyeballs to get started. In fact, this very much seems to be the model of many of these tech startups, that they take out big loans. And because of inflation driving up the cost of borrowing, well, now the low cost that they used to pay to repay those loans no longer exists. So companies that were taking out loans 2 to 3 years ago are now having to repay a lot more of that money back to the banks, which in itself means that they now maybe have to take out more loans to be able to guarantee those repayments. And of course, you can already see, the potential mess here. So there's two things that are going to go on. We talked about, is this the start of a new banking crisis? I don't think so. It seems to have been a very, very much isolated issue. It seems to have been handled well. I say that now, but who knows? Maybe next week we end up in a banking crisis. I hope not. But who knows? But like I say, we've seen lots of companies go out and say, well, now we have to actually start making sure that this isn't a massive problem. As we found out during the 2008 financial crisis, a lot of people thought this was just an isolated problem, but no, it wasn't. Lots of banks were involved in very much the same thing with the mortgages and the 2008 stuff, and it happened. One domino fell, and they all start to go very, very, very quickly. So they've now got, I think, every single bank now having to look at what is going on here, but it doesn't seem to be that way. The 2008 banking crisis happened very, very quickly. And nothing else has been, or at least we've seen following repercussions of this. But does this mean, as we said, lead to a tech crisis or a tech company crash? Because as we said at the beginning, tech companies take out loans, massive loans, up to their eyeballs, to get their companies started or to get them off the ground. And in many cases, for these tech companies, they don't actually have a product to sell or show to people for years, because it might take 2 or 3 years worth of development to actually be able to get something to market. Hence, why they take out such big loans. And banking and the banks are very well sort of versed in this now. They're very much happy because they tend to see sort of big returns on their loans to these tech companies. But that has been because of the low interest rate. So now interest rates, and especially driven very much by inflation, how many more tech companies could be in a crisis of, well, we took out this loan, but now because of inflation, the high cost of repayments, that loan that we initially took out was meant to last us, let's say, guarantee us at least 2 to 3 years of operation for development before we can actually get our product to market. How many companies are now going, well, actually, the money that we initially took as startup capital from these banks now only maybe lasts us a lot less time, maybe a year, maybe like a year and a half, maybe it's, we don't know. And that's the worrying thing, because if we do see these tech companies start to worry about this, do we instead see a Silicon Valley crash, which could be very, very disastrous for not just tech companies in America, but how many other tech companies around the world are invested in companies that have stuff going on in Silicon Valley. So if that happens, that could be very, very disastrous for the entire tech industry around the world. So will there be further repercussions on this? I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on this, but we'll wait and see what happens there. Like I say, I hope not, but something well worth keeping an eye on for sure. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the one off donation link called the YouTube thank you button. There's the Pony Club down below. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel. Even if you do click the like and just click the like and share button, of course, do remember to ring the bell. And as always, we'll see you all next time.